as authors, if you allow certain people to create fan fiction of your characters, does that then negate your copyright protection? Because we know once we have our copyright, we have to defend it. Otherwise, we could potentially lose it. Let's talk to everybody's favorite IP and entertainment lawyer, Tony, to find out more.
My name is Tony Iliakostas. I'm an adjunct professor of entertainment law and IP at New York Law School, and have an Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok account called The IP Professor that's dedicated to all things intellectual property.
Tony, we've been talking a lot about fan fiction on the channel recently, and I want to know, does allowing fan fiction of your book as an author then negate your copyright because you didn't defend it?
Well, it's a pretty concerning question that we're even having this, but let's kind of boil down to the nitty-gritty of all of this, which is, first of all, when you have created a work of authorship, that is your copyright, is protected fully under the Copyright Act of 1976. We've talked about this before. You would obviously reinforce copyright protection by way of registration in the U.S. Copyright Office. And so when anyone is creating any sort of fan fiction, they have to bear in mind that they need to avoid works that are actively being protected under the Copyright Act of 1976. So, works that were published by an individual, they, last for the life of the author plus 70 years. Any works that are under the copyright of a specific corporate entity last for 95 years from date of creation, or 95 years from date of publication, 120 years from date of creation, whichever is first. Normally, it's always going to be the 95-year term, and that's going to be the kind of term that's going to apply to a lot of publishers like, Scholastic and Random House and Penguin and all those. Now, it's important for fan fiction authors out there to just remember, it's a PSA alert, to avoid using any sort of characters that are actively protected under copyright right now. Those are off limits. They are totally not available to you whatsoever. Even if you make a derivative of the character and it's your own spin on things and it's different, it's a totally different ball game. It's completely distinct, from what's in the origin book. That does not matter. The bottom line is you are still making a character that has some basis or some origin to a copyrighted character that was created by its rightful author. Fair game for fan fiction authors to use books that are in the public domain. That's fine because the copyright is expired, so you're good to go. But getting to this world of, let's say a fan fiction author uses an existing protected copyright to create some type of book. What does the origin copyright owner do? First of all, I hope to God that you went to the Copyright Office from the get-go to register your copyright, because that is essential to any copyright infringement claim. But it is important to note that if you are a copyright owner and you notice that your works are being used in fan fiction, the clock starts from the moment you discovered it. The Copyright Act of 1976 has made it very clear that you can pursue a copyright infringement claim against an infringer 3 years after the date of within 3 years rather of the date of discovery of the infringement. Now, a lot of people like to milk this. There is some case law pending right now involving no other than Mariah Carey, the purported Queen of Christmas. There are many people that dispute that, but she's being sued by some guy named Vince Vance, Andy Stone, and Andy Stone is alleging that his song, All I Want for Christmas Is You, is a copy of Mariah Carey's song, All I Want for Christmas Is You. Both songs were released in the early 90s. And, his actually in 1989, it was remastered in 94, and her song came out in 94. And he said, I didn't discover Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You until 2020. So, or 2021. So, I think it's hard for me to believe that it took almost 25 years for him to discover single-handedly one of the biggest and most popular Christmas songs of all time. So I feel like there are people that milk that whole three-year date of discovery thing. So I think that if you are an author that notices it, you should really, from the moment you discover it, that's really when the clock ticks. And I think that, you should be very wary of lying about when you discover something, because any statements that you make, especially court, documents that are officially submitted in court, those are under penalty of perjury. So if you lie, you potentially could face some type of sanction, a monetary fine, even prison time if it's applicable. So you want to be truthful and honest, but that discovery period is really important, because if you notice the infringement from, the fan fiction author that's using your copyrighted work and you do nothing for 3 years, you cannot pursue a copyright infringement claim whatsoever against that person. So it is all the more important for copyright owners to be mindful of how important it is to go to the Copyright Office, register their works, and be very proactive in protecting their portfolio. The last thing you want to do is be free and willy-nilly to just let anyone have access to your copyright work. And if you generally don't care about your rights, or if you don't care about the money and you just want everyone to have access to your works in the public domain, then fine, let them have at it. But if you are the kind of person that puts in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in your work and you want to protect your rights in some way, I think that it is not a reckless action to be proactive in going against infringers, especially fan fiction authors that have, in a very emphatic way, abused the rights of a lot of people that have put in a lot of effort to make specific works of authorship. So that would be kind of like my guidance for anyone that is speculative about going after fan fiction authors. I think you have to work off of your, intuition, but I'm of the mindset that if you notice the infringement, you should go after it. And it all starts with protecting your copyright in the U.S. Copyright Office. I cannot advocate for that enough. That is super important, especially if you care about protecting your works.
Okay, so there are some authors who really love the world of fan fiction, and they are okay with some people writing fan fiction of their novels. If they give a pass to one person who has created some fan fiction of their books, does that then mean they have not defended it and therefore anybody can use it how they want? Or is there something else that we need to know here?
I will say, just generally, not even this may even be like quasi legal advice, but one thing I would say is I think that a lot of authors should not cherry pick who they give permission for fan fiction to, because I think there has to be an even playing field no matter what. And, but the bottom line is it's not to say that you're, granting one permission and not the other, and therefore you're not defending your copyright. It's really more so about sort of creating a uniform policy that is not going to create some level of inequity, if you will. I think that if you love fan fiction and you want other people to make fan fiction based on your work, then maybe the way to do it is to have some type of permission process where you grant gratis permission, free permission for someone else to make fan fiction. Or you work out an arrangement where for every sale of the book, you get 20% of the cut of the royalties, and the author retains the remaining 80% for their contributions to the fan fiction work. So maybe there could be some type of business arrangement from that perspective. But I do think that we shouldn't be in a position, or authors should not be in a position to handpick who they want to do fan fiction for, and then deny that same right to someone else. I think there has to be that uniform policy. And again, for the purposes of protecting your copyright, I think it is even more important to make sure that you are creating that even playing field when it comes to others having access and use of your copyrighted works.
Now, authors, lean in, because I have a little secret for you. If you are interested in pulling some other people into your world and allowing them to create their own spin on what you've done, there's actually a thing called shared world series or shared world books. We talk about it here on the channel. That's where you can bring in multiple people to have stories within the same universe or within the same world, and you can bring those fanfiction people in to actually create a business relationship with you that you can all benefit from. So if you've got questions on that, drop that down below. Check out our episodes on that. We actually have some really cool guests who have discussed it with us before. And if you have further questions on this for Tony, now is the time to drop those in our comments. And as always, you can reach out to Tony on his social media. Tony, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at the IP Professor. And you can check out my entertainment law podcast called End Scene, with new episodes dropping every Friday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Drop your questions down below. Tony's coming back for upcoming episodes, and we want to continue to keep you legally safe and protected in the publishing space because there's so much that could potentially go wrong. So drop your questions down below and follow for daily videos as we continue to help you navigate the world of publishing, from your writing to your publishing to your marketing, to make this your most profitable year ever with the least amount of stress and overwhelm possible. We'll see you then.